My name is Paula, and I was just thinking that a great city is one that takes care of everybody within the city. And with the money from Maley Drive, I think maybe we could have taken some of that, if not all of that, and put it back to stop homelessness in our city. Because what good is the city if we don't take care of everybody else in our city? And under the terms of equity, what is our city doing right now to stop homelessness within our city?
I was thinking, I thought you were
Yeah, well, certainly that's a file that I held on and worked on for 20 years. And I have to say, some very significant things have happened in our community in terms of homelessness from a local perspective. So the way that agencies work together, the resources that they pull together and put, the problem of homelessness is a much bigger problem. And so we turn to municipal governments and say, you solve that with your municipal tax dollars, when in fact it's one of the biggest social scourges in our communities. And that's the kind of stuff we have to fix with federal and provincial tax dollars, our income taxes that are progressive taxes, not regressive taxes, that we contribute to the whole. So it's like saying in healthcare, and maybe this is happening in healthcare, but we don't say in healthcare, we should have more volunteer nurses and doctors, right? We pay nurses and doctors because we think that's important. What we say in the not-for-profit sector and around people who are homeless or who are living with not enough financial resources is that we should have more volunteers who serve up meals someplace and take care of people in some voluntary way. And that's an inappropriate model. People need enough money, to buy their groceries, to pay their rent, to keep a roof over their head, to not have to be worried every second about what's happening next. And then guess what? They'll get healthy, they'll get a job, they'll get better. I mean, there's studies all over the place that prove that. So we keep putting band-aids on homelessness, and we keep thinking that if it's just the right housing structure and it's just this and it's just that. And it isn't. It's a much bigger issue than that. And so at a local level, I actually think we've done a really good job in Sudbury. The Homelessness Network is much more coordinated. They work with mental health services. We are on the verge, I think, of opening so when you drink alcohol and you instead of going a wet shelter, thank you very much. Oh my God, words. So I think we're on the verge of a wet shelter, which is a much healthier way to treat people who are addicted to alcohol, to have them have a place where they can sleep and be in off the park benches and not spending the night in the back of an ambulance or an emergency ward, which by the way is the most expensive way to take care of that problem. 3 times the cost that a wet shelter would cost. So we've made that kind of progress. We actually finally have the Ministry of Health at the table, realizing that the implications of homelessness are part of our healthcare system and have to be taken care of. But it really has to come, from that level. And people have to have enough, like whether it's a guaranteed income or some system that makes sure people have enough money, to take care of their basic needs. And one last piece, all the work we've done in tobacco, and you would know this because we did this at the health unit. People quit smoking when they have enough money to do something else but worry steady. So when you look at who has quit smoking, the higher up the income level, the more people have quit smoking. People at the bottom level, the smoking levels have not changed at all because that drag on that cigarette, and if any of you have smoked, you know what I'm talking about, it's the one thing that just keeps it all in place. And so God, don't ask me to give that up.
It's an addiction.
It's even bigger than the addiction. It's the thing that's keeping it all together for you in a life that's chaotic. So let's make life a little less chaotic. And what that means is let's have enough money to buy groceries and pay rent. And you watch the drops in tobacco use, right? So all those things, and all of that then is money, because now we're not sick, now we're not getting cancer, now we're not spending something else. We spend it anyway. When we don't give people enough money to buy food and keep a roof over their head, it costs us a ton more in healthcare and lost life and lost productivity. That's my rant.
That's your rant? Okay.
Good job.
Can you hear me? I'm a terrible speaker.
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
You're a great speaker, Gordon.
Anyway, you brought up the express buses. I'd like to explain. I've been presented at least 2 or 3 things to the local government, about express buses. For example, we should be traveling they should run express buses from Onaping. They should be running them from Cape Rio. And for example, in the case of Cape Rio, they should start there, make a stop in Hanmer and Valcaron, and at each of those places they should have a parking spot for people that do drive and can get on the bus. And do the same on LaSalle Boulevard. On LaSalle Boulevard, you have a parking, they can get off there, but should have small buses delivering the people to all the places in the shopping center. And you do a similar thing on the south end at the Four Corners. And you should have a stop at going out to the University and Bailey Drive, or the Ramsey Lake Drive. But this, I've made this proposal to the local government, but I have no idea whether it's ever been put into effect, because I'm not a bus rider. But I believe that this would really reduce the costs, improve the atmosphere. People wouldn't have to buy cars. They'd get on a bus instead. And all these things are benefits for all the people.
Yeah. No, I almost totally agree.
Almost.
Yeah.
Almost.
The only amendment I've got on that is with the parking lots. Because in my opinion, if you expect somebody to drive from their home to a parking lot to get on a bus, you should just expect them to drive the whole way. But that can be dealt with. I would hate to see the city pay to create new free parking lots in Hanmer or at shopping malls when those parking lots already exist. So I'd like to see something that would encourage or require those parking lots to be available for public parking. Because right now it's customers only, right? And that sort of makes sense within their business plan. But you've got those huge parking lots that are mostly unused, and if it makes sense for somebody to park their car there and get on the bus to go to Lively or wherever, great. Why not let them do that? Figure out a way to let them do that. Otherwise, try to create those hubs in places where there are already concentrations of people, improve the walkability, improve the walking environment and the cycling environment in those areas, and people will walk a kilometer to get to that express bus or that limited bus, even though, right now they won't walk 400 meters. 80% of the population of the city is within 400 meters of a bus stop, but our ridership is, it's like 5%?
Yeah.
Why? Because it's miserable walking in the city for most of that time. And the bus service isn't frequent enough. And you're riding in regular traffic. So you get up early, walk your 400 meters to the bus, and then you're stuck in traffic on MR80. That's not helpful, right? So I almost entirely agree with your idea. And it could work. It could work. We got to change the culture, and I'm going to step on Janet's toes a little bit. I think one of the things to change the culture, and we're talking about all kinds of things, but we just spent, right now there's the Sudbury Protocol conference going on, this convention idea, and it seems like the only success story that we've got in Sudbury is re-greening. We keep hearing about it over and over and over again. But anybody who's been involved in any projects or anything, they know that there's a lot of other success stories, but it's so hard to find them. As somebody who came here 5 years ago, I really didn't know what I was getting into, and I'm still finding out new things about what's happened in the history of Sudbury. So I think we've all got to do a better job of telling Sudbury's story, aside from re-greening, and aside from whatever strikes or whatever fires or whatever toxic spills that have happened. Let's talk about the successes, the homelessness initiatives, people who ride transit, cyclists, all the rest of it. I think that'll really, that's the sort of thing that helps change the culture and change people's expectations of what's possible.
Can I ask a question?
After a couple more people first.
To do with this.
Do this, okay. Oh, yeah.
You object to the parking lot. My objective in the parking lot is to get cars off the road so the people that are driving can drive. So they don't mind going to a parking lot and dropping their car and then taking the bus. And the other thing is, we're not polluting the atmosphere as much because we get rid of the cars. So that is why I believe we should have parking lots.
I think we can make it work.
Just want to ask the whole panel about the idea of just promoting higher density development. Because that'll reduce the pressure on farmland, it should help the transit situation. If you do it right, you can protect the water as well and deal with some of the social issues as well. So, interested in what you can say about that.
Again, if we're going to increase population, we have to increase the services. And wastewater already is struggling, so that would be a priority. We would have to upgrade in order to handle that, extra capacity, the extra population.
I mean, I think our history is so interesting. First of all, the way we developed, in a mining community and a small cluster of communities, and then the gift of amalgamation that we were given back in 2000 really forced us into a situation that is, an unnatural marriage, and I think there's still lots of animosity. So, when we would talk about, and I'm Sudbury born and raised, Minnow Lake, like old Sudbury, right? And we would talk about downtown Sudbury, and everybody at the council table that represented an outlying area would say, well, there's a downtown in Azilda, and there's a downtown in Chelmsford, and, so we were, everybody kind of protective of their own space. And the reality is, there are very vibrant, growing communities in all of those areas. And so I think when we talk about increasing density, you have to think about increasing density around those cores. So in the city of Sudbury, absolutely infilling and, the kinds of housing that we would need and different kinds of housing in neighborhoods and that kind of thing. And I'm going to guess that in the city of Sudbury, the old city of Sudbury, it's not as big an issue because we've had lots of infilling. But then I think you get into the outlying areas and you've got to decide on what's our central core here and where are we going to be allowed. And we come from a culture, particularly if we live in those areas, of having big open spaces, big backyards, get on my skidoo or my quad and away I go. And no, I don't want an apartment building behind here. And if you've got anything at planning, no matter what they want to do, no, we can't do it. And so it's going to take some pushing. It's like the conversation about taxes. We have to have grown-up conversations about what's wrong with spreading people all over God's green acres and then trying to have water and sewer and transit and the rest of it, right? But I think we have that added difficulty of the nature of our community and how widespread it is. So you can't say to people in Capreol, come on into town and forget about Capreol. It's not going to happen. But what do you do then in Capreol to make sure that people don't have to come to Sudbury, first of all, every day to get what they need? They can get it all there and stay there and then build up that density in those centers. But it certainly is important and doable.
So, Jerry, I think
Sure.
I think Matt had something.
I just had a couple of thoughts on that. I don't know that if higher densities require more population.
No.
Well, we're not growing that much.
Yeah.
So there's a balance sheet that developers have to, or there's a balance sheet that developers have to balance out, right? Nobody's going to leave Capreol to move into downtown, and it might be difficult to attract a higher density development to Capreol. But I think one of the weird things is that I get the sense that if you were to poll the population of Sudbury and say, would you like to see more people move to Sudbury? You sort of conceptually might think, yeah, it'd be great to have more jobs or more, whatever. But on the other hand, if you ask them, would you like Sudbury to have a population of 300,000 people? Probably they'd say no. Because the only concept attached to higher population and higher densities is more traffic. So it might take a change in the culture before people would accept the higher density sort of stuff. This idea that, oh, no, they don't need their cars, they're gonna bike to work. That gets rejected outright because it's such a radical idea for Sudbury. But if we can, like I said, tell the story about the people who take the bus and who want to take the bus and who want to ride bikes, if we improve our streets so that more people themselves are walking to places, even New Sudbury, like it's really not a far walk from the mall to thousands of homes. I mean, 10 minutes, right? But you don't want to cross LaSalle.
Or Barry Down.
Or Barry Down. So it's really difficult. There's a cognitive obstacle there where people can't imagine adding more people into an area that they already feel is over-congested with traffic. So if we can solve that traffic problem or make it more comfortable so that they can imagine those new people walking or biking around, then we maybe see more support of that.
So you're saying only people without cars should move to Sudbury?
Yeah.
That'd be good.
Hello, and I'm sorry I'm late. I didn't get a chance to hear everybody's talk. But given that municipalities have pretty much reached the limit of their ability to fund what they need through taxation of homes and local businesses, and that our needs for housing and infrastructure, etc., far exceed what we're able to pull in now, I'm wondering